I thought introducing Victoria to my family would be the next natural step in our relationship. We'd been together for 8 months, and I was head over heels in love with this incredible woman who brought light into every room she entered. She was smart, funny, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. I wanted my family to see what I saw in her, the woman I was planning to propose to. The dinner was set for a Saturday evening at my parents' house, the same colonial where I'd grown up with my older brother Samuel. Mom had insisted on cooking her famous pot roast, and Dad promised to be on his best behavior. Samuel, who was 28 and still living in the basement, seemed genuinely excited to meet Victoria. At least, that's what I told myself. When we arrived, Victoria looked stunning in a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes. She'd brought flowers for my mother and a bottle of wine for my father. Always thoughtful, always trying to make the best impression. My parents seemed charmed immediately. Mom fussed over the flowers while Dad launched into one of his lengthy stories about his construction business. But I noticed Samuel watching, not participating in conversation, not even really listening to Dad's stories. Just watching Victoria with an intensity that made my skin crawl. When she laughed at something, Mom said, his eyes never left her face. When she reached for her water glass, he tracked every movement of her hand. "Samuel," I said, trying to draw him into the conversation. "How's the job search going?" He barely glanced at me. "Fine," he muttered, then immediately turned his attention back to Victoria. "So Victoria, what do you do for work?" She smiled warmly, completely unaware of the predatory way he was staring at her. "I'm a graphic designer at Morrison & Associates downtown. It's a small firm, but I love the creative freedom they give us." "Downtown," he repeated slowly, like he was memorizing the information. "That must be exciting. Do you work late often? Walk to your car alone?" The question sent ice through my veins, but Victoria just laughed it off. "Sometimes, but there's good security in our building. Plus, I park right under a streetlight." I watched Samuel file away every detail she gave him. The name of her company, her location, her schedule, her parking situation. This wasn't casual small talk, this was reconnaissance. During dinner, things got worse. Samuel barely touched his food, too busy hanging on Victoria's every word. When she mentioned she lived alone in an apartment on Maple Street, he perked up like a hunting dog catching a scent. "Maple Street," he said. "Which complex? I think I know that area pretty well." "The Gardens," she replied innocently. "It's the brick building with the blue awnings." I wanted to kick myself for not coaching her beforehand, for not warning her that Samuel had always been different. Growing up, he'd been the kid who collected roadkill, who got expelled from school for accidentally pushing a girl down the stairs, who my parents constantly made excuses for. "You know," Samuel continued, leaning forward, "I jog through that neighborhood sometimes. Maybe I'll see you around." The way he said it made my blood run cold, but Victoria just smiled politely. She had no idea she was being hunted. After dinner, while my parents showed Victoria photo albums in the living room, I cornered Samuel in the kitchen. "What the hell was that?" I hissed. "What was what?" He was loading the dishwasher, acting completely innocent. The interrogation. All those questions about where she works, where she lives, her schedule. Samuel straightened up slowly, and for the first time all evening, he looked directly at me. There was something in his eyes I'd never seen before, a cold, calculating look that made me take a step back. "I'm just being friendly," he said quietly. "She's going to be family, right? I should know these things. She's my girlfriend, Samuel, not yours." He smiled then, and it was the most unsettling thing I'd ever seen. "We'll see about that." The first sign that something was wrong came 3 days after the dinner. Victoria called me at work, her voice shaky and confused. "This is going to sound crazy," she said, "but I think someone's been calling my apartment and hanging up. It's happened 6 times since yesterday." My stomach dropped. "What time were the calls?" "Random times. 2 in the morning, 7 a.m., during my lunch break. Like someone's trying to figure out my schedule." She paused. "I'm probably being paranoid, right?" I wanted to tell her yes, that she was overthinking it, but I couldn't shake the image of Samuel's predatory stare from Saturday night. "Have you checked your caller ID?" That's the weird part. It just shows unknown number every time, and when I try to answer quickly, they hang up before I can say hello. That evening, I drove to Victoria's apartment to keep her company. We were watching a movie when her phone rang. Unknown number. She looked at me nervously before answering. "Hello?" Silence on the other end. Then a soft click as the caller hung up. "That's the 7th one today," she whispered. I spent the night at her place, and sure enough, the phone rang at 2:17 a.m. "This time," I answered. "Who is this?" I demanded. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then, "Tell Victoria I said hi." The voice was muffled, distorted, but I knew. I knew exactly who it was. "Samuel, you sick freak." The line went dead. Victoria was sitting up in bed, clutching the sheets. You know who that was? I couldn't lie to her anymore. I told her about Samuel's history, about the red flags from dinner, about the gut feeling that had been eating at me for days. She listened in growing horror as I described my brother's obsessive behavior, his history of problems with boundaries, the way my parents had always covered for him. "What do we do?" she asked. "I'm calling him right now." Samuel picked up on the first ring, like he'd been waiting for my call. "Having trouble sleeping?" he asked, amusement clear in his voice. "Stop calling her. I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the crap, Samuel. I know it's you. This ends now, or I'm calling the police." There was a long pause, then he laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "You can't prove anything. And besides, what's wrong with wanting to get to know my future sister-in-law better? She's not your anything. Stay away from her." "We'll see," he said, then hung up. The calls stopped for exactly 1 week. Victoria and I started to relax, thinking maybe my threat had worked. Then she came home from work on a Thursday evening, visibly shaken. There was a man outside my building today, she said, pacing around her living room. Tall, dark hair, wearing a gray hoodie. He was just standing there when I got home from lunch. Still there when I left for my dentist appointment. Still there when I got back at 5. Did you get a good look at him? Not really. He had the hood up, and he was standing in the shadow between the streetlights. But he was definitely watching my building, watching the entrance. I felt sick. Did you call the police? And tell them what? That a man was standing on a public sidewalk? She collapsed onto her couch. They'd think I was paranoid. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called in sick to work and parked across the street from Victoria's building at lunchtime. At 12:30, I saw him, a tall figure in a gray hoodie, standing in the exact spot Victoria had described. I got out of my car and started walking toward him. As I got closer, the figure noticed me approaching and quickly pulled the hood down lower, turning away. But I'd seen enough. Samuel. Hey, I shouted, breaking into a run. He bolted, sprinting down the street and disappearing into an alley between two buildings. By the time I reached the alley, he was gone, but I'd seen his face clearly enough to be certain. That night, I confronted my parents. I drove to their house after work, my hands shaking with rage. Your son is stalking my girlfriend, I said without preamble when Mom opened the door. What are you talking about? Dad appeared behind her, looking genuinely confused. I told them everything. The phone calls, the surveillance, the fact that I'd caught Samuel red-handed outside Victoria's building. I expected shock, outrage, promises to talk to Samuel immediately. Instead, Mom frowned. Are you sure it was Samuel? That seems very out of character for him. Out of character? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, he's been weird his entire life. Remember the incident at school? Remember how he used to follow girls home? He was just shy, Dad said defensively, and those incidents at school were blown out of proportion. He's stalking Victoria. Maybe she's misunderstanding his interest, Mom suggested. Samuel mentioned he thinks she's very sweet. Maybe he's just trying to be friendly and she's taking it the wrong way. I stared at my parents in disbelief. Even faced with clear evidence of their son's disturbing behavior, they were making excuses, twisting the narrative to protect him. Where is he? I demanded. In his room, Dad said. But I don't think you should. I pushed past them and stormed down to the basement. Samuel was sitting at his computer, and when he turned around, he was smiling that same cold smile from the dinner. Hey, little brother, how's Victoria? I grabbed Samuel by the front of his shirt and slammed him against the basement wall. For a moment, genuine fear flickered in his eyes, but then that sick smile returned. Get your hands off me, he said calmly. Stay away from her, I snarled. I'm not kidding, Samuel. I saw you outside her building today. Prove it. I don't need to prove it. I'm telling you, if you go near her again, if you call her again, if you even think about her, I'll make your life hell. He laughed. You think you're protecting her, but you have no idea what she really wants. I've seen the way she looks at me. The delusion in his voice was terrifying. She looks at you like you're a creep, because that's what you are. We have a connection, he continued, like I hadn't spoken. She's just confused right now because she's with you, but she'll figure it out eventually. I wanted to punch him, to beat some sense into his warped brain, but I could hear my parents coming down the stairs. What's going on down here? Dad demanded. Your son is a stalker, I said, not taking my eyes off Samuel. I'm trying to be nice to your girlfriend, Samuel said, switching instantly to his innocent victim voice. And he comes in here attacking me. He's been watching her building, calling her at all hours. I don't know what you're talking about, Samuel said. I've been home all week. Ask Mom and Dad. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to acknowledge what was obviously happening. Instead, Mom nodded. He has been home, she said. We've been watching movies together every evening. And the calls? I answered one of them. It was him. The voice was disguised, Dad said. How can you be sure? I couldn't believe this was happening. My own family was gaslighting me, protecting a predator because he happened to share their DNA. This is insane, I said. You're enabling him. We're protecting our family, Mom said firmly, from what sounds like a very unstable situation. The next week brought an escalation that chilled me to the bone. Victoria came to my apartment on Tuesday evening, pale and shaking. Someone broke into my car, she said. What? When? Sometime during the day. I parked in the garage at work like always, but when I came out, the driver's side door was unlocked. I always lock my doors, always. Was anything stolen? That's the weird part. Nothing was missing. But she reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. This was on my dashboard. It was a picture of her, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. She was walking into her office building, unaware she was being photographed. On the back, someone had written in block letters. Beautiful morning, wasn't it? My hands were shaking as I held the photo. This is evidence. We're calling the police right now. I already did. They took a report, but they said without fingerprints or witnesses, there's not much they can do. They suggested I get a security system for my car. That night, I called Samuel's cell phone. He answered cheerfully. Missing me already? I have the photo, I said. What photo? The one you left in Victoria's car after you broke into it. Silence for a long moment. Then, I think you're confused. I've been helping Dad with a roofing job all week. Been out of town, actually. Samuel, you should be more careful about making accusations you can't prove. Could be considered harassment. The line went dead. I drove to my parents' house immediately. Dad was in the garage, looking at job estimates. Has Samuel been working with you this week? I asked. Sure has. Good to have him pulling his weight finally. We drove up to Springfield Monday morning for that Morrison job. Didn't get back until today. My heart sank. If Samuel had really been out of town with Dad, then who had broken into Victoria's car? Who had taken that photo? Unless Dad was lying too. Dad, I said carefully, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Has Samuel ever done anything like this before? Stalked women? Harassed them? Dad set down his papers and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold and closed off. Your brother has had some trouble with social cues in the past, he said slowly, but he's never hurt anyone, and I don't appreciate you trying to paint him as some kind of predator. What about the girl at school? The one who fell down the stairs? That was an accident. What about Jennifer Morrison? Remember her? Samuel was obsessed with her senior year. Dad's jaw tightened. That girl was trouble. Making up stories, trying to get Samuel in trouble because he wouldn't date her. Dad, she moved schools because of him. She moved because her family believed her lies. He picked up his papers again, dismissing me. I think you need to look at your own relationship instead of blaming your problems on Samuel. Maybe Victoria is the one with issues. I left my parents' house that night knowing I was completely on my own. Not only would my family not help protect Victoria, they were actively working against me, covering for Samuel and casting doubt on every piece of evidence I brought them. But I had underestimated just how far they were willing to go to protect their golden boy. That became clear 3 days later, when I got a call at work that made my blood freeze. This is Detective Martinez with the City Police Department. We need to speak with you about a complaint that's been filed against you for harassment and stalking. I sat in the police station interview room, my mind reeling as Detective Martinez explained the complaint that had been filed against me. According to the report, you've been harassing your brother Samuel Thompson with repeated accusations, showing up at his workplace, and making threats against his safety. Detective Martinez read from her file. The complainant says you've become obsessed with the idea that he's stalking your girlfriend, despite no evidence to support these claims. This is insane, I said. Samuel is the one stalking Victoria. We filed a report about the break-in, the photographs. I see that report here, the detective said, flipping through pages. But there's no evidence connecting your brother to that incident. Meanwhile, we have multiple witnesses stating that you've been harassing Samuel. Witnesses? What witnesses? Your parents, for starters. They say you've been showing up at their house at all hours, screaming accusations, physically attacking Samuel in their basement. The room felt like it was spinning. He's turning this around on me. This is exactly what he does. Manipulates situations, plays the victim. Detective Martinez studied me with the kind of look cops give to people they think might be unstable. Sir, I need you to understand something. If you continue to harass Mr. Thompson, we will have to take action. Stay away from him. Stay away from your parents' house, and stop making these accusations. What about protecting Victoria? What about the actual stalking that's happening? If your girlfriend experiences any further incidents, she should report them. But as of right now, the evidence suggests that you're the one engaging in problematic behavior. I walked out of that police station feeling like I was living in an alternate reality. Samuel had managed to flip the entire situation, painting himself as the victim and me as the unstable aggressor, and my parents had backed him up completely. When I told Victoria what had happened, she went pale. They're protecting him, she said quietly. Even when they know what he's doing, they're protecting him. We need to be more careful about how we handle this, I said. Document everything, but don't give Samuel any ammunition to use against us. For the next 2 weeks, things were eerily quiet. No more phone calls, no more mysterious men in hoodies, no more break-ins. Victoria started to relax, thinking maybe the police warning had scared Samuel off. Then came the flowers. Victoria called me at work, her voice tight with fear. There's a bouquet on my doorstep. No delivery truck, no card. They just appeared. What kind of flowers? White roses. 24 of them. They're beautiful, but... She trailed off. But what? There's something tied to one of the stems. A piece of paper with my work schedule written on it. From 3 weeks ago. The exact schedule I mentioned at your parents' dinner. My blood turned to ice. Samuel had kept notes from that first meeting, documented everything Victoria had innocently shared about her life, and was now using that information to terrorize her. I'm coming over right now, I said. No, her voice was firm. We can't give him any reason to claim you're the one harassing people. I'll take pictures, document everything, and file another police report. That evening, we sat in Victoria's apartment staring at the flowers she'd moved inside for evidence. They were gorgeous. Expensive white roses arranged perfectly in a crystal vase. Under different circumstances, they would have been romantic. How did he get my work schedule? Victoria asked. I never wrote it down at the dinner. I just mentioned that I usually work late on Thursdays. He's been watching you, I said. Learning your patterns, taking notes. This isn't random harassment, it's systematic stalking. Victoria's phone rang. Unknown number. We looked at each other. She'd been getting calls again for the past few days, but we decided not to answer them. This time, I reached for the phone. Hello? Breathing on the other end, then... Did she like the flowers? Samuel's voice was different this time. Not disguised, not muffled. He wanted me to know it was him. Stay away from her, I said. She hasn't thanked me yet. That's rude. Samuel. Maybe I should stop by her work tomorrow to see if she got them. I know exactly where she parks, exactly what time she takes her lunch break. Fascinating how predictable people can be. The line went dead. Victoria was crying. He's never going to stop, is he? I held her close, feeling helpless and furious. We'll figure this out. We'll make him stop. But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure I believed them. Samuel had the protection of our parents, the benefit of doubt from the police, and an obsession that seemed to be growing stronger every day. The next morning, Victoria called me from work, hysterical. "He was here," she sobbed. "He was in the parking garage when I got to work, just standing by the elevator, watching. When I saw him, he smiled and waved like we were old friends. Did anyone else see him? The security guard was there. I told him that man was stalking me. But when the guard approached Samuel, he just said he was waiting for someone and walked away calmly. The guard said since he wasn't technically doing anything wrong, there wasn't much they could do. Where is Samuel now? Gone. But he left something on my car." My heart sank. "What?" "A note. It says, 'See you soon,' with a smiley face. And," her voice broke, "he knows my license plate number. He wrote it at the bottom of the note. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to my parents' house, knowing I was probably violating the police warning, but no longer caring about the consequences. Samuel was in the front yard, washing his car and whistling like he didn't have a care in the world. When he saw me pull up, his face lit up with that horrible smile. "Hey, little brother, how's Victoria doing today?" I got out of my car and walked straight toward him, my hands clenched into fists. "I know you were at her workplace this morning. Was I? I don't recall." He continued washing his car, acting completely innocent. "This ends now, Samuel. Whatever sick game you're playing, it ends now." He straightened up and looked at me with mock concern. "You seem stressed. Maybe you should talk to someone about these paranoid delusions you're having." "They're not delusions. Prove it." He stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. "You can't, can you? Because no matter what you think you know, no matter what you think you've seen, I'm always just a concerned brother-in-law trying to be friendly, and you're always going to be the jealous, unstable boyfriend making wild accusations." The calculating coldness in his voice made me realize something terrifying. This wasn't impulse or obsession. This was a carefully planned campaign of psychological torture, designed to make me look crazy while he systematically terrorized the woman I loved. And he was winning. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, at what my parents called a family dinner, but what turned out to be an ambush. They'd invited Victoria and me over, claiming they wanted to clear the air and work things out as a family. I should have known it was a trap. We walked into the dining room to find not just my parents and Samuel, but also my Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob, family friends, the Hendersons, and Samuel's high school buddy Mike. 8 people total, all sitting around the table with serious expressions. "What's going on?" I asked, immediately on guard. "Sit down," Dad said firmly. "We need to have a conversation." Victoria grabbed my arm. "Maybe we should go." "No," Mom said quickly. "Please, both of you sit. This is important." Against my better judgment, we took the 2 empty chairs at the end of the table. I felt like we were facing a tribunal. Dad cleared his throat. "We're here because we're concerned about you. About both of you, actually. The accusations you've been making against Samuel, the paranoia, the way you've been acting lately. It's not healthy. This is an intervention," Aunt Linda added gently. "We love you, and we want to help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. An intervention? Samuel is stalking Victoria, and you're staging an intervention for us? "See?" Samuel said sadly from across the table. "This is exactly what we're talking about. The delusions, the anger. It's getting worse." Uncle Bob leaned forward. "Son, we've all heard the stories. The claims about phone calls, break-ins, following. But Samuel's been with family during most of these incidents. We can vouch for him. He's manipulating all of you," Victoria said, her voice shaking. "He's been terrorizing me for weeks." Mrs. Henderson, who'd known our family for 20 years, shook her head sympathetically. "Sweetheart, stress can make us see things that aren't there. Sometimes when we're in a new relationship, we can feel overwhelmed, paranoid." "I'm not paranoid," Victoria's voice broke. "I have evidence. Photos, notes, witnesses who saw him at my workplace. Evidence that could have come from anywhere," Mike said. "And as for witnesses, well, sometimes people see what they want to see." I realized what was happening. This wasn't an intervention. It was a coordinated attack designed to make Victoria and me doubt our own sanity. They were gaslighting us with the weight of the entire family behind them. "Show them the flowers," I said to Victoria. "Show them the note." Victoria pulled out her phone and showed them the photos she'd taken. The beautiful white roses, the note with her work schedule, the "see you soon" message. Mom examined the photos with a frown. These could be from anyone. A coworker, a friend, maybe even you staging them yourself for attention. "What?" Victoria stared at my mother in shock. "Sometimes people create drama in their relationships," Aunt Linda said kindly. "It's not uncommon. The need for attention, for sympathy. You think I'm making this up?" "We think you're troubled," Dad said, "and you're dragging our son into your delusions." Samuel sat quietly through all of this, occasionally shaking his head sadly like he was the victim of a terrible misunderstanding. The performance was flawless. "What about the phone calls?" I demanded. I answered one myself. I heard Samuel's voice. "You heard a voice you wanted to be Samuel's," Uncle Bob said. "The mind can play tricks, especially when we're already convinced something is true." For an hour, they systematically tore apart every piece of evidence we presented. The photo left in Victoria's car could have been taken by anyone. The man in the hoodie could have been anyone. The flowers could have been sent by anyone. The workplace appearance could have been mistaken identity. And through it all, Samuel sat there looking hurt and confused, the perfect victim of our unfounded accusations. Finally, Dad delivered what felt like an ultimatum. "We want you to get help," he said. "Both of you. Professional help. And until you do, until you stop these attacks on Samuel, you're not welcome in this house." "You're choosing him," I said quietly. "After everything I've told you." Everything Victoria has shown you, you're choosing to protect him over us. We're protecting the truth, Mom said. Samuel is a good boy who's being victimized by two people who clearly need help. Victoria stood up abruptly, tears streaming down her face. I can't listen to this anymore. She walked out, and I followed her. Behind us, I heard Aunt Linda say, I hope they get the help they need. And Samuel's voice, soft and concerned. I just want them to be happy. In the car, Victoria was shaking. They really believe it, don't they? They really think we're crazy. They have to believe it, I said. If they admitted Samuel was capable of this, they'd have to acknowledge they've been covering for a predator his entire life. It's easier to paint us as unstable. What do we do now? I looked at the house where I'd grown up, where my family was probably still discussing our mental health issues while Samuel played the concerned victim. We protect ourselves, I said. Because they're not going to help us. That night, Victoria and I made a plan. We would document everything meticulously, install security cameras, vary her routines, and prepare for the fact that Samuel's behavior would likely escalate now that he felt even more protected by the family. We had no idea how right we were about the escalation part. 3 days later, Victoria didn't come home from work. I waited at Victoria's apartment until 9 p.m. before panic set in. She always called if she was going to be late, always. Her phone was going straight to voicemail, and her office was locked and dark. I drove to the Morrison & Associates building and found her car still in the parking garage, keys on the driver's seat, purse on the passenger floor. The driver's side door was standing open. My hands were shaking as I called 911. My girlfriend is missing. Her car is here, but she's not. Someone took her. The responding officers were the same ones who'd taken the complaint about Samuel weeks earlier. I could see the skepticism in their eyes when they recognized me. Sir, how long has she been missing? She gets off work at 5. It's now 9:30. She never would have left her keys in the car like this. They took notes, called for backup, began treating it as a potential abduction. But I could tell they were thinking about the harassment complaint Samuel had filed, about the unstable boyfriend making accusations against his innocent brother. I called my parents' house. Mom answered. Where's Samuel? I demanded. He's right here watching television with us. Why? Victoria's missing. Her car was abandoned with the keys inside. There was a pause, then Mom's voice, carefully controlled. I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe she went somewhere with a friend, put Samuel on the phone. I don't think that's a good idea. You're obviously upset, and after what happened at dinner the other night, put him on the goddamn phone. I heard muffled conversation, then Samuel's voice. Hey, what's going on? Where is she? Where's who? Victoria? I have no idea. Is she missing? His voice was perfect. Concerned, confused, helpful. But underneath the performance, I could hear something else. Satisfaction. If you hurt her. Whoa, hold on. You're accusing me of hurting Victoria? That's a pretty serious allegation. In the background, I heard Dad saying, put me back on. Dad's voice came back on the line. Son, you need to calm down. Samuel's been here all evening. We've been watching the game together since 6 o'clock. Check the basement, I said. Check Samuel's room. I'm not going to invade your brother's privacy because you're having some kind of breakdown. Get help. He hung up. The police search began immediately. They found Victoria's security badge on the ground level of the parking garage, like it had been dropped during a struggle. The building's security cameras showed her leaving through the main exit at 5:15 p.m., walking normally toward the garage. But the garage cameras had been mysteriously damaged that afternoon. Someone had spray-painted the lenses black. At midnight, I was pacing the police station lobby when Detective Martinez found me. We've checked your brother's location, she said. His phone GPS shows he's been at your parents' house all evening. We also spoke to your parents, who confirm he's been with them. He could have left his phone at home. He could have... Sir, I understand you're worried about your girlfriend, but we need to focus on real leads, not personal vendettas. At 3:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Victoria's voice, weak and terrified. Help me. Then Samuel's voice. She's safe. For now. Where is she? What do you want? I want you to stop telling lies about me. I want you to admit that Victoria has feelings for me that you're too jealous to acknowledge. Samuel, please, let her go. I'll do whatever you want. You'll publicly apologize for your accusations. You'll tell the police you made everything up because you were jealous of the connection Victoria and I have. Fine. Yes, I'll do it. And you'll convince Victoria to give me a chance. A real chance. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? She needs to understand that we're meant to be together. I've been patient. I've been gentle. But she's not listening. Maybe some time alone with me will help her see the truth. Samuel, if you touch her, the line went dead. I immediately called Detective Martinez and played her the recording I'd made of the call. Finally, they had Samuel's voice admitting to kidnapping Victoria. We're moving now, Martinez said. We'll have units at your parents' house in 10 minutes. I followed the police convoy to my childhood home, my heart pounding as I watched officers surround the building. They found my parents in the living room, genuinely shocked and confused by the raid. Samuel's been here all evening, Dad insisted as they searched the house. Check his room if you want, he's sleeping. But Samuel's room was empty. His phone was on the nightstand, explaining the GPS location. His window was open, a rope ladder hanging from the sill. He'd been gone for hours while my parents sat upstairs, unknowingly providing him with an alibi. The basement had been converted into something that made my skin crawl. Photos of Victoria covered one wall, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens, showing her at work, at home, at the grocery store. There were detailed notes about her schedule, her habits, her routines. Maps with her apartment and workplace marked. And in the corner, a mattress with restraints attached to the frame. Jesus Christ. one of the officers whispered. My parents stood in the doorway, staring at the evidence of their son's obsession. Mom was crying, her hand over her mouth. Dad just looked broken. We didn't know, Mom whispered. We had no idea. Detective Martinez was on her radio, coordinating a manhunt. We have an active kidnapping situation. Suspect is Samuel Thompson, white male, 28 years old. He's taken Victoria Chen to an unknown location. The search went on for 18 hours. They found Samuel's car abandoned in a wooded area outside town. Search dogs picked up Victoria's scent leading toward an old hunting cabin about 2 miles into the woods. When they finally surrounded the cabin, I could hear Victoria screaming inside. The SWAT team moved in just as the screaming stopped. In the silence that followed, I thought my heart might actually stop beating. I was crouched behind a police car 50 yards away, Detective Martinez keeping me back from the scene, but I could see everything through the trees. We have movement inside, came the radio chatter. Suspect appears to be holding the victim, then Samuel's voice, amplified by a megaphone. Stay back. She's fine, but if you come any closer, I'll hurt her. This is Detective Martinez with the city police. Samuel, we just want to talk. Let Victoria go, and we can work this out. There's nothing to work out. Samuel's voice was high-pitched, manic. She understands now. Tell them, Victoria, tell them you want to be here. Silence from inside the cabin. Victoria, can you hear me? Martinez called, a weak voice, barely audible. I'm okay. Please help me. That was enough for the tactical team. They moved fast, smoke grenades through the windows, then a coordinated breach through the front and back doors simultaneously. The gunshot made me jump. Single shot. From inside the cabin. Then shouting. Then silence. Suspect down, victim secured, we need paramedics immediately. I broke away from Detective Martinez and ran toward the cabin, my heart in my throat. Please be okay, please be okay, please be okay. They brought Victoria out first. She was conscious, walking under her own power but supported by 2 paramedics. Her clothes were torn, her wrists had rope burns, and there was a cut on her forehead, but she was alive. She was alive. Victoria! I ran to her, and she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I thought I was going to die, she whispered against my shoulder. He kept saying we were meant to be together, that you didn't really love me, that I just needed time to understand. You're safe now. You're safe. Behind us, they were bringing Samuel out on a stretcher. He'd been shot in the shoulder when he'd raised a hunting knife toward the officers. Even injured and restrained, he was screaming. She wanted to be there. Ask her. She wanted it. She was starting to understand. The delusion was complete. Even caught red-handed, even facing kidnapping charges, Samuel genuinely believed that Victoria had romantic feelings for him that she just needed help recognizing. At the hospital, while Victoria was being examined, Detective Martinez filled me in on what they'd found in the cabin. It wasn't random, she said. He'd been planning this for weeks. The cabin belongs to your Uncle Bob. Samuel had access to it through family hunting trips. He'd stocked it with food, blankets, restraints. There were notebooks full of detailed plans about how he was going to help Victoria see the truth about their connection. How long was he planning to keep her there? According to his notes, as long as it took. Days, weeks, months. He had this fantasy that if he could just get her away from you, away from outside influences, she'd fall in love with him. The examination showed that Victoria had been tied up but not sexually assaulted. Samuel had apparently been planning to court her properly, to convince her through conversation and isolation that they belonged together. The restraints were to keep her from leaving before she understood. Somehow, that made it even more terrifying. When Victoria was released from the hospital, we drove straight to my apartment. I'd already decided we weren't going back to her place. Too many memories. Too much fear. We'd get her things later, when she was ready. What happens now? She asked as we sat on my couch, her head on my shoulder. Samuel goes to prison. For a long time, hopefully. And your family? I thought about my parents, standing in that basement, seeing the evidence of what their son really was. The wall of photos, the detailed stalking notes, the restraints on the mattress, the look of horror and disbelief on their faces. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe they'll finally see the truth. Or maybe they'll find a way to blame this on something else. Someone else. I got my answer the next day when my mother called. We need to talk, she said, her voice strained. There's nothing to talk about, Mom. Samuel kidnapped Victoria. He's going to prison. He's sick, she said. He needs help, not prison. This whole thing happened because you and Victoria pushed him over the edge with your accusations. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even after everything, even after seeing the evidence with her own eyes, she was still making excuses. He kidnapped her, Mom. He tied her up in a cabin and held her against her will. He was confused, desperate. If you had just been more understanding from the beginning, if Victoria had been kinder to him. I hung up. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. Samuel's lawyer tried to argue that his actions were the result of mental illness, that he genuinely believed Victoria had feelings for him and was being prevented from expressing them by my controlling behavior. The prosecution had recordings of the phone calls, the physical evidence from the cabin, Victoria's testimony about the kidnapping. It should have been an open and shut case. But Samuel took the stand in his own defense and gave a performance that was chilling in its sincerity. He spoke about the connection he'd felt with Victoria from the moment they met, how her smiles at family dinner had given him hope, how my jealousy had prevented her from expressing her true feelings. I never meant to hurt her, he said, tears in his eyes. I just wanted her to see that we belonged together. All the phone calls, the gifts, the attempts to spend time with her, those were expressions of love, not harassment. He was genuinely delusional, completely convinced that his stalking had been romantic pursuit, that the kidnapping had been a rescue mission to save Victoria from my influence. The jury didn't buy it. Samuel was convicted on charges of kidnapping, stalking, harassment, and assault. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. As they led him away in shackles, he turned to look at Victoria one last time. "I'll wait for you," he called out. "However long it takes, I'll wait." Victoria squeezed my hand so hard I thought she might break my fingers. Outside the courthouse, my parents were waiting. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months. Mom was crying. "We're sorry," Dad said quietly. "We should have listened to you. We should have protected Victoria." "Yes," I said. "You should have. Can we try to fix this, as a family?" I looked at Victoria, then back at my parents. "Samuel will be out of prison in 12 years, maybe less with good behavior. And when he gets out, he'll still be obsessed with Victoria, still dangerous. Are you going to protect him then too?" Neither of them answered. "That's what I thought," I said. "Victoria and I walked away from my family that day, and I thought it was forever. I was wrong. Victoria and I moved to Portland 3 months after the trial. We needed a fresh start, somewhere far from the memories and the family that had chosen a predator over victims. I found work with a tech company. Victoria freelanced as a graphic designer, and slowly, carefully, we began to rebuild our lives. For 2 years, things were peaceful. We rarely talked about Samuel or my family. Victoria went to therapy to deal with the trauma, and gradually, the nightmares stopped. She could walk to her car without constantly looking over her shoulder. She could answer unknown phone calls without her heart racing. We got married in a small ceremony with just Victoria's family and a few close friends. No one from my family was invited. No one from my family even knew about it. I thought we were free. Then, on a Tuesday morning in our 3rd year in Portland, my phone rang. Mom's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Samuel's getting out," she said without preamble. "Early release for good behavior. He'll be home next month." My blood turned to ice. He was supposed to serve 12 years. 8 years with good behavior. He's been a model prisoner, gotten his GED, taken anger management classes. The parole board thinks he's rehabilitated. Rehabilitated? I couldn't keep the fury out of my voice. "Mom, he kidnapped Victoria. He held her prisoner. People like that don't get rehabilitated." "He's changed," she insisted. "The letters he's written, the therapy he's been in. He understands now that what he did was wrong. He wants to make amends." "Make amends?" "By staying the hell away from us. He wants to apologize. To both of you. He's written you a letter. Don't send it. Don't call again. And make sure Samuel understands that if he comes anywhere near us, I'll call the police. He's not going to bother you. He has a job lined up, a place to live. He's moving on with his life." I hung up, but the damage was done. The peace Victoria and I had built was shattered. She took the news about as well as I expected. Panic attacks returned, sleepless nights, constant anxiety about being watched or followed. "What if he finds us?" she asked. "What if he comes here?" "He won't," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Portland is 3,000 miles away. He doesn't know where we live or work." But I started checking our security system obsessively, varying our routines, watching for any signs that we were being watched. The paranoia that had consumed us 5 years earlier came flooding back. For 6 months, nothing happened. Samuel was released, moved in with my parents, got a job at a local auto shop. Mom sent me updates that I didn't want, telling me how well he was doing, how much he'd changed. Then Victoria got a friend request on Facebook. The profile had no photo, just a generic silhouette, but the name was Sam Thompson. The mutual friends list showed my parents, my Aunt Linda, several family friends. Victoria showed me the request with shaking hands. "How did he find me?" "My profile is private, and I use my maiden name. He's been asking family about us," I realized. Getting information, probably claiming he just wants to apologize. We blocked the profile immediately, but 2 days later, another friend request appeared. Different name, Samuel T., but the same mutual friends. Then came the Instagram follow request, the LinkedIn connection request, the attempts to add Victoria on every social media platform she used. Each time we blocked him, he created a new profile. We made all of Victoria's accounts private, changed her usernames, but somehow he kept finding her. "He's not just looking for me," Victoria realized during one sleepless night. "He's studying me, learning about my life now, what I do for work, what I look like now. He's preparing." The next morning, I called Detective Martinez back in our hometown. "He's supposed to stay away from us," I told her. "The restraining order is still active. Social media contact doesn't violate the order unless he's making threats," she said. "Has he sent any messages?" "No, just friend requests. I'll have a word with his parole officer, but technically, he's not breaking any laws." That afternoon, Victoria got a package at work. No return address, but postmarked from our hometown. Inside was a small jewelry box containing a silver necklace with a heart pendant. No note, no signature. Victoria called me, crying. "How does he know where I work? We've been so careful." I drove to her office immediately and found her boss, a woman named Sarah who'd become a close friend over the past 2 years. "Has anyone been asking about Victoria?" I asked. "Phone calls? People stopping by? Anything unusual?" Sarah frowned. "Actually, yes. About a week ago, a man called asking about our graphic design services. He specifically asked if Victoria Chen worked here, said he'd heard good things about her work. I told him yes, and he asked about her schedule, when would be a good time to meet. What did you tell him?" I said she usually works 9 to 5, Mondays through Fridays. Was that wrong? Did I do something wrong? Victoria was packing up her desk. "I can't work here anymore. If he knows where I am, if he's been calling. You can't let him run your life again, I said. He already is. That night, I made a decision I'd been avoiding for months. I called my father. Dad, Samuel is stalking Victoria again. Online, sending packages to her work, getting information about our lives. I'm sure it's not what you think, Dad said wearily. He talks about you two sometimes, wonders how you're doing. But he's not. He sent her jewelry, Dad, at her workplace. He called pretending to be a client to get information about her schedule. There was a long pause. I'll talk to him. Talking won't work. It never has. You need to make him understand that if he doesn't stop, he's going back to prison. He's trying to move on with his life. He's got a job. He's dating someone. He's dating someone? My blood ran cold. A nice girl named Amanda. They met at his anger management group. She's been good for him. Dad, you need to warn this Amanda about Samuel's history. His history? You mean the mistake he made when he was younger? He's learned from that. It wasn't a mistake. He stalked and kidnapped Victoria. He was sick then. He's better now. I hung up, but my father's words kept echoing in my head. Samuel was dating someone who probably had no idea what kind of man she was getting involved with. 2 days later, Victoria came home from her new job. She'd found freelance work she could do from home, with an envelope that had been slipped under our apartment door. Inside was a wedding invitation. Samuel Thompson and Amanda Reeves were getting married in 2 months. At the bottom of the invitation, someone had written in Samuel's familiar handwriting, "Hope you can make it. Amanda is excited to meet the family." Victoria stared at the invitation, her face pale. He's getting married to someone who doesn't know what he is, I said. Someone who's about to become his next victim. The decision to contact Amanda Reeves was one of the hardest I'd ever made. How do you tell a stranger that the man she's about to marry is a convicted stalker and kidnapper? How do you explain that the families who should have protected his last victim instead covered for him? I found Amanda's Facebook profile through the wedding announcement. She was 26, worked as a veterinary technician, and from her photos, seemed like a genuinely sweet person. Her profile was full of pictures with Samuel, hiking trips, dinners out, casual moments that looked happy and normal. He'd learned to play the part of a loving boyfriend perfectly. Victoria and I debated for days about whether to reach out. What if Amanda didn't believe us? What if she told Samuel, and he escalated his harassment of Victoria? What if we were wrong, and he really had changed? But then I remembered the look in Samuel's eyes during the trial, the complete conviction that Victoria had wanted to be kidnapped, that his stalking had been romantic pursuit. People like that don't change. They just get better at hiding. I created a fake Facebook profile and sent Amanda a careful message. "Hi, Amanda. I hope this doesn't seem strange, but I'm someone who knows Samuel's history, and I'm concerned about your safety. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? There are things about his past that you might not know." She responded within an hour. "Who is this? What kind of things?" I took a deep breath and typed, "My name is David. Samuel is my brother. He was convicted of stalking and kidnapping my girlfriend 5 years ago. I have court documents and news articles if you want to see them." The response took longer this time. "That's impossible. Samuel told me about his time in prison, but it was for a bar fight that got out of hand. He said his brother made up stories about him because of jealousy over a girl." My heart sank. Samuel had already laid the groundwork, already painted me as the lying, jealous brother, but at least Amanda was willing to hear me out. We met at a coffee shop in Amanda's hometown, about an hour from where my parents lived. She was prettier than her photos, with kind eyes and an open face that made it clear why Samuel had chosen her. She was trusting, optimistic, the type of person who saw the best in everyone. "Samuel said you might try to contact me," she said as we sat down. "He warned me that you've been obsessed with breaking up his relationships." I pulled out a folder of documents I'd brought. Court records, newspaper articles about the kidnapping, photos from the trial. Amanda's face grew pale as she read through them. "This says he held someone in a cabin for 18 hours, she whispered. "Victoria, my wife now. He was convinced she was in love with him, that I was keeping them apart, but he told me. He said he went to prison for assault, that you made up stories about stalking because you were jealous. Amanda, I need you to understand something about Samuel. He's very good at manipulation, at making people believe his version of events. Our entire family believed him for months, even when they had evidence of what he was doing." She was quiet for a long time, staring at the court documents. Finally, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Has he ever shown signs of this behavior with you?" The question hung in the air. I could see her thinking, remembering, connecting dots she hadn't wanted to connect before. "Sometimes he gets jealous," she said slowly. "If I talk to male customers at work, or if I go out with friends. He says it's because he loves me so much, because he can't bear the thought of losing me." "Has he ever followed you? Shown up at your work unexpectedly?" He brings me lunch sometimes. Says he was in the neighborhood." Her voice was getting smaller. "And he knows my schedule really well. Better than I know his, actually." "What about your phone? Does he ever check it? Ask who you've been talking to?" Amanda's face crumpled. "He has my passcode. He says couples shouldn't have secrets from each other." Everything was falling into place. The same pattern of control and obsession Samuel had shown with Victoria, but more subtle this time, disguised as love and concern. "Amanda, I'm not telling you this to hurt you or ruin your relationship. I'm telling you because my wife still has nightmares about the 18 hours she spent tied up in that cabin, convinced she was going to die. Samuel hasn't changed. He's just gotten better at hiding what he is." She was crying now, quiet tears that she wiped away with her napkin. "What am I supposed to do? The wedding is in 6 weeks. Everyone's invited. Everything's planned. You're supposed to protect yourself," I said gently. before it gets worse. Because it will get worse. Amanda left that coffee shop with copies of all the documents, promising to think about everything I'd told her. I gave her my phone number and Victoria's told her she could call us any time if she needed to talk or needed help. I didn't hear from her for 3 weeks. Then, on a Thursday evening, my phone rang. Amanda's voice was shaky and scared. "I need help," she said. "I tried to break up with Samuel, and he's not taking it well." "Where are you?" "At a friend's house. He doesn't know where it is, but he's been calling nonstop, sending text messages, showing up at my work. He says if I don't come home, he's going to hurt himself." "That's manipulation, Amanda. He's trying to guilt you into coming back." "I know, but I'm scared. Some of the messages he sent, they're angry. Really angry. He says I'm just like Victoria, that I'm being manipulated by people who want to break us up." My blood ran cold. Samuel was escalating again, following the same pattern. First love bombing, then control, then stalking when the victim tried to escape. "Have you called the police?" "They said since we live together and share a lease, there's not much they can do unless he threatens violence directly. All his messages are about love and wanting me back." I thought about Victoria, about how the police had initially dismissed our concerns because Samuel was so good at staying just within legal boundaries while still terrorizing his victims. "Amanda, I want you to do something for me. Start documenting everything. Every call, every text, every time he shows up somewhere. And whatever you do, don't go back to him. Don't even talk to him." "I won't. But I'm scared of what he might do." Some of the things he said, about teaching me a lesson, about making me understand how much he loves me. The parallels to Victoria's stalking were terrifying, but this time, we had advance warning. This time, maybe we could stop Samuel before it went as far as kidnapping. "Listen to me," I said. "Samuel is dangerous. Not just emotionally manipulative, actually dangerous. You need to take this seriously." "I know. I believe you now. I should have believed you from the beginning." 2 days later, Amanda called again. This time, she was terrified. "He broke into my apartment," she sobbed. "I went back to get some clothes while he was at work, but he was there waiting. He said he knew I'd come back, that he'd been watching and waiting." "Did he hurt you?" "He grabbed my arms, shook me, said I was making a mistake, said he loved me too much to let me go. When I tried to leave, he blocked the door." "How did you get out?" "My neighbor heard me screaming and called the police. Samuel ran when he heard the sirens." Finally, Samuel had crossed the line into obvious criminal behavior, but I had a sinking feeling that this was just the beginning. The call came at 3 in the morning, 2 weeks after Amanda had escaped from the apartment. Victoria and I were asleep in Portland when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "David?" A woman's voice, crying. "This is Amanda. Samuel took me." My heart stopped. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm in a hospital in Springfield. He found where I was staying and broke in. My friend tried to stop him, and he hit her with something. Then he dragged me out to his car." Victoria was awake now, listening to my side of the conversation, her face pale with recognition and terror. "How did you get away?" "He was taking me to the same cabin where he took Victoria. I remember you told me about it. But on the way there, he was ranting about how everyone was against us, how he was going to prove that I loved him. He was driving erratically, and we hit a tree. I could hear the exhaustion and trauma in her voice, but she was alive. She was alive." Samuel was knocked unconscious in the crash. I managed to get out and run to the road. A trucker found me and called 911. "Where's Samuel now?" "Still unconscious at the hospital. But David, when he wakes up, he's going back to prison, right? This time for good?" I wished I could give her the reassurance she needed, but I knew my family too well. "I hope so. But Amanda, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that my parents will try to protect him again." I was right to worry. Within hours of Samuel's arrest, my mother was on the news, giving interviews about her son's mental health crisis and the vindictive ex-girlfriend who had set him up to fail. "Samuel was making real progress," she told the local reporter. "He'd found love, was planning a wedding, had turned his life around. Then his brother and his brother's wife started filling Amanda's head with lies about the past." The reporter, who had clearly done her homework, pressed back. "But Mrs. Thompson, your son was previously convicted of kidnapping. This appears to be a pattern of behavior." "That was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion," Mom replied. "Samuel has mental health issues that need treatment, not imprisonment. This Amanda girl led him on, then tried to destroy him when she changed her mind about the relationship." I watched the interview with Victoria, both of us incredulous that my mother was literally defending kidnapping on television. "She's never going to stop," Victoria said quietly. "Even after everything we've been through, everything Amanda's been through, she's still protecting him." The trial for Samuel's second kidnapping was faster than the first. Amanda's testimony was devastating. She described the escalating control, the stalking after she tried to break up with him, the terror of being dragged from her friend's house and driven toward an isolated cabin. Samuel's lawyer tried the same mental illness defense that had failed before, but this time there was a clear pattern. This wasn't a one-time breakdown, this was a repeat offender who had learned nothing from his first conviction. During the trial, more disturbing details emerged. Police had searched the cabin again and found it prepared for another long-term captivity. Fresh supplies, new restraints, detailed notes about Amanda's habits and schedule that Samuel had been keeping for months. Most chilling of all were the journals they found in Samuel's apartment, filled with fantasies about teaching women to love him properly and plans for what he would do when he got Victoria back after he was done with Amanda. He'd never stopped thinking about Victoria. Amanda had just been practice. Samuel was sentenced to 25 years to life, At 28 years old, he would be at least 53 before he was eligible for parole again. As they led him away, he looked directly at me in the courtroom gallery. "This isn't over," he mouthed silently. The aftermath of Samuel's second conviction finally did what years of evidence and testimony couldn't. It broke my parents' ability to protect him. The media attention, the community outcry, the undeniable pattern of predatory behavior finally forced them to face what their son really was. But it didn't make them better people. It just made them broken ones. Dad started drinking heavily and lost his construction business when clients stopped hiring him. Mom became a recluse, ashamed to show her face in public after years of defending a repeat kidnapper on television. 6 months after the trial, Uncle Bob called me. "Your father had a heart attack," he said. "The stress, the drinking. He's in intensive care." I felt nothing. No sadness, no urgency to rush to his bedside. This man had chosen to protect a predator over innocent women, had enabled years of stalking and terror, had refused to see the truth even when it was presented to him in court documents and hospital reports. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it in the most distant way possible. "He wants to see you. To apologize." "It's too late for apologies." Dad died 3 days later without us ever speaking again. At the funeral, I saw faces I'd grown up with. Family, friends, relatives, neighbors who'd known me since I was a child. Most of them looked away when they saw me, uncomfortable with the reminder of what the Thompson family had become. Mom approached me after the service, looking 20 years older than her actual age. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything. You were right about Samuel. You were always right." "I know," I said. "Can you forgive me?" I looked at this woman who had raised me, who had read me bedtime stories and taught me to ride a bike and been the center of my world for the first 18 years of my life. Then I thought about Victoria tied up in a cabin, convinced she was going to die while my mother made excuses for her kidnapper. "No," I said, "I can't." Victoria and I never went back to that town again. We built our life in Portland, had 2 children, created a world where Samuel and the family that enabled him were just a dark chapter in our past. Our daughter Emma was born 3 years after Samuel's final conviction. When she was old enough to ask about Daddy's family, we told her the truth. That sometimes people you love can make choices that hurt innocent people, and sometimes protecting yourself means walking away from those people forever. Samuel sends letters from prison sometimes. They're delivered to my parents' old address, forwarded by the new owners, filled with the same delusional ramblings about love and misunderstanding. Victoria throws them away without reading them. I read enough to know he still believes he's the victim in all of this. He'll be eligible for parole when Emma is in college. We'll be ready, but for now, we're free. We're safe. We're surrounded by people who believe survivors instead of protecting predators. We've built something beautiful from the ashes of that nightmare, and that's the real victory. Sometimes the only way to break the cycle is to walk away from it completely, no matter how much it costs you. Sometimes protecting the people you love means accepting that the people who raised you were wrong, and that love without accountability isn't love at all. We chose accountability. We chose each other. We chose to believe that being a victim doesn't make you weak, and that cutting toxic people out of your life, even family, can be the bravest thing you'll ever do. And we lived happily ever after, not because the story had a perfect ending, but because we finally learned that we deserved better than the beginning.